Well, good morning. This is Greg Mazak of Bob Jones Seminary. I'm sitting here in my backyard, very thankful to the Lord for the gift of a beautiful day. It's a little bit cool, but it's wonderful. And it's during a time of trial for many of us because we're going through this coronavirus shutdown. And so for those who are believers in Jesus Christ, for those who have embraced the gospel, and for those who are trying to grow closer to the Lord and getting to know Him better so that we could become more like Christ, how do we respond to this coronavirus trial or any other trial that you may face? You may be facing something vocational, relational, or financial. Where do we turn when life gets very hard? Well, of course, by God's grace, we would look to the Scriptures for help. And there are many places to go, including a wonderful letter written by Jesus' half-brother James many years ago that is still very contemporary in what it gives us today. I'm going to read James chapter 1, verse 2. It says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials." James gives us a command, an imperative, and it's to consider it or count it all joy. That word is cognitive. It's not the idea of feel happy when life is falling apart, trials. It's the idea of consider, count it cognitively a joyful thing when life gets hard and you face trials. That no doubt sounds counterintuitive at best, if not outright foolish. And I think James knows that. So notice the next verse. He writes in verse 3, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. When we as followers of Jesus Christ face trials, how in the world could we ever count it all joy? There's something we know, that these trials are ordained by God, and He's bringing them into our lives to strengthen our faith so that we can develop patient endurance. You say, how do you develop patient endurance? You focus on a trial and you count it all joy, knowing that God is using the trial to help you be stronger in your faith. And maybe I should say it differently. Maybe rather than focusing on the trial, you focus on the God who loves you. And remember what you know. You know, beloved, that He's using this trial to help you develop patient endurance. If you ever heard it said, maybe by a pastor in a sermon, trials will make you either bitter or better, I absolutely believe that. There are many times in life that we focus on circumstances and we look to circumstances for happiness, and eventually we get disappointed or maybe worse, bitter. But if we would embrace the teaching of this wonderful letter, then we would know that God, who loves us so much that He sent His Son to die on a cross for our sins, that sovereign Lord ordains trials into our lives, and He's doing it so that we can count it all joy and thus become stronger in our faith, developing patient endurance. And why do we want that? Well, one more verse, verse 4. And let endurance have its perfect result so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. To be a mature Christian, verse 4, I need to focus on what I know, verse 3, that God's developing patient endurance in my life. We call it progressive sanctification. And to count it all joy, verse 2, when you go through trials, you have to face trials. So, do I like trials? Not at all. Do I look forward to them? No. But I can focus on what I know, by God's grace, that He's doing something good in my life. So even though life is filled with trials, here I am, sitting outside on a beautiful spring day, thankful to a God who loves me, a good shepherd who cares for me, that I could enjoy this day, that I could have James in my hand on my device, that I could be enjoying a nice cup of hot Sumatra coffee in my Clemson mug, black, the way God made it. Giving thanks to the Lord even as we face trials. My prayer for me during this time of trial is that God would help me become more like Christ. That's my prayer for you as well as a follower of Jesus Christ. Thanks for joining me. God bless.